Hello, I'm David Amberghini, and today I want to talk about the 7 books that helped me in my life. And it was really hard to narrow it down because I've read and have in my possession over several thousands of books, from self-development all the way to like science, mathematics, yada yada. For the sake of this video, I wanted to break this down into 3 core categories, from beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So with that said, I want to start this off with the first book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, Atomic Habits with James Clear isn't a motivational book. This isn't something that you see like rinse and repeat. It's very specific because he's very logistic. So personally for me, the Atomic Habits I put for the beginner stage, and why this helped me so much was because of the basics that I did on a daily basis. I start to question myself before I eat, a cheat meal or ice cream. I think, will my best self be doing this? And occasionally, of course, you have to have moderation, but there are some things that do matter where it's like, should I go out and party or should I work on myself some more to get myself ahead further for what I actually want to do? So for all of you as well, this is very important because you're going to start being a lot more detailed on what you do for the little small steps. Great book, great read. James Clear did awesome, and there's a reason that this is #1 everywhere. So on to the next. The second book I want to talk about is The Psychology of Money. Now this one is by Morgan Housel, and this one I would say is probably a rating of beginner as well. Maybe it's not just necessarily your intelligence that's connected to financial, it's actually your behavior. Do you hoard money? Do you have an abundance mindset? All that stuff might come actually from your emotions and behaviors, which is very interesting. So with the next book, Psychology of Money, the reason this one is important is, for myself, I did not understand that money has so much correlation with our behaviors. For example, if you have a parent or someone that lost a lot of money in the stock market, they're going to discourage you from investing in the stock market. If you have a parent that has made a lot of money in the stock market, they're going to want you to invest into it. So make sure when you're having these things like a scarcity mindset, abundance mindset, or whatever it might be, it might not just be because of luck or intelligence or something else. A lot of it actually has to do with your behaviors. A lot of successful individuals failed a lot more than people that are unsuccessful. So that's a pretty great read. Recommend it for all of you. Still definitely more the intermediate side or beginner, and on to the next. The third book I have today, which is probably around the beginner to intermediate as well, is Brian Tracy, Goals. Again, Goals, Brian Tracy, and the breakdown with this basically is you have to have a plan, you have to have goals, you have to make sure your emotion isn't super hypersensitive to what other people think. Now with the goals, this book is very important because Brian Tracy, he not only breaks down the importance of it, but also the fact that if you don't have a plan, then plan to fail. So with business plans and that kind of thing, you really want to make sure you narrow it down. It doesn't necessarily mean if you utilize it, but at least you have it there and you at least have a plan and you can tailor it accordingly. And with a lot of individuals, it sounds so common sense, right? It's like, write down your plans, write down your goals, have a business plan, yada, yada, yada. But how many of you have you done it? I personally, I've, listened to it a couple times, first initially, and I'm like, this is common sense. I don't need that. And then I started breaking it down, write it down. And I'm like, whoa, this is actually true. You have to have a plan. You have to have goals. Don't be too sensitive. And that's the summary of this book. Really, really highly recommend. Very intermediate, in the middle, great introduction to overall success to help you, whatever you want to do. And please check it out. This is a huge recommendation. Now moving on to the 4th book. This one is The Creature of Jackal Island. This one is definitely could be somewhat perceived as a conspiracy, but there's been a lot of evidence to show otherwise. Central banking was an ultimate fail. The founding fathers are the stem of the Federal Reserve that we have today. A lot of them are privately owned, and it might be a little more corrupt than we thought. So with The Creature of Jackal Island, this one is really important for myself and you to understand the real history of how things work. The Federal Reserve, understanding that those are privately owned, the founding fathers, where they failed miserably with the banking system initially, the central, and then they kind of have this huge immaculate plan that benefits them more than us, the taxpayers. So my best piece of advice is definitely read this so you can at least get an understanding of the real history. Also knowing that this might be a little borderline conspiracy, but there's been a lot of documents that show otherwise. Definitely a very, very in-depth, mind-opening book for myself and others that I've referred to. Please check it out. You definitely won't regret it. So moving on. Book number 5. This is Reality Transurfing. This is definitely something that's going to be more advanced and a book that might be a little confusing for most, but a book I highly recommend at some point or caliber. Technology thing of how you can actually change your reality with just frequencies, energy, and the list goes on. So with Reality Transurfing, this one was a big bestseller all over Russia at a time period. Several volumes all in one book, a lot to unpack. And for me personally, it helps so much with the understanding of manifestation, law of attraction, and all these laws of the universe that you can actually implement with the logistics of life. And when you do that, you could really become super successful. I realize that there's some successful individuals that understand the logistics of things, of just how things basically work. And then there's people that have this whole other side of it with spiritual and with this higher, almost like Maslow pyramid mindset and energy. And this definitely impacts that. Getting into book number 6, a breakdown of really what you should be learning in great depth and not just a basic summary that's giving you gratification. What I'm talking about all of these is you're gonna think that, you know, you're gonna go for the big bright book that everyone's reading, but if you're competitive or trying to be successful, you have to read the ones that people don't really talk about or know. The books are getting a lot more complicated. This is when it's not just one volume, it's not a short book like you're seeing off TikTok, but rather a lot more advanced and almost Bible-like. So what I mean by that is it's a little alarming and overwhelming when you have this stack of books that you have to read. And the reasons I recommend these ones most importantly is not only because I love philosophy, but biographies is probably the cheat code in life to actually get successful overall. These are people's lives, and you're only here one time. Time is the most precious thing here. There's nothing that can buy it, and if you do, then you're being cheap. Think about that. And with biographies, you're learning wisdom from others that have lived it. They failed, they succeeded, ups and downs, etc., etc. So biographies are the #1 underrated thing, and this series is very, very underrated. Very much recommend, and please read them. Book number 7. This is definitely one of the more advanced, if not the most advanced one, aligned with the greatest thinkers of the world. Now this one is a really big 11 volume worth series, and it's just basically a breakdown of the real history and the real initiative and agendas, endeavors, and actually also recommended by Elon Musk himself. And he also said that if you're reading the books that are the size of a Bible, you're probably getting the real history and the books that are going to get you ahead in life. Now the last one is definitely one of the more advanced ones. This comes in a huge hefty 11 volume book series that I have on my own bookshelf, and these will break down like everything. Like for me personally, I really love this because I actually understood the reality of things. There's not so much edits and second, third, fourth edition ghostwriters. It's genuinely what the author wrote, and for this one was actually Will Durant and his wife, and they were just absolutely amazing and crushed this one. This series and volumes I really recommend. It's like the real history. You know, you're not reading biased sides at all. You're not reading from the winners of history. You're reading from an author. Definitely one really important read. Thanks for tuning in, friends, for these 7 books. Like I said again previously in the beginning of this video, these might not really help you. Books are really tailored to your liking and what you're trying to get out of life. If you're not really watching these videos because of your successes financially, I probably wouldn't recommend these 3 books. If you're trying to figure out the reality, to make sure you make the right decisions, trust the correct people and the correct history, books like this will help. And the other ones, of course, a little bit aligned with maybe personal wants and interests and desires, as well as also the reality of history. So again, thank you, friends, and I'll see you next time. And as these books get a little more complicated, like the world's greatest thinkers and philosophers, political thinking, science, etc., it's definitely going to be... Oh, my nuts! Ah! That one was a nut shot. Definitely something that will... I'm overthinking. It's not the short ones you see on TikTok. It's these long, girthy, Bible-style...
Okay. Ready?
Yep. Now, with the creature of Jackal... That's a heavy book. It's an expensive book, too. I gotta be careful.